Hello, I'm Danica Lorer, and this is Lit Happens, your celebration of the literary arts here in Saskatchewan. Today, we're going to celebrate words, but not the words on the page, as we quite often do. We're going to talk about taking the words from the page to the stage. And I'm very pleased to welcome Torien Cafferata. And Torien is here as a Saskatoon playwright, producer, and actor. Thank you for being on the show today, Torien.
Thanks for inviting me.
So Torien, let's just start with a little bit about your background. Just tell me a little bit about what brought you to this point.
Well, I've always been a storyteller ever since I could, create like little Lego stories or draw comics or anything like that. And so I've always been interested in different forms of art and different writing media that can collaborate. So I have a BFA in drama with a focus on acting. But I've always been interested in writing plays, in writing films, and recently interactive experimental theater has been what I've been really interested in.
And so can you tell us a little bit about that, your most recent project?
My most recent project is a pod play called Over Here. And a pod play, if you don't know, is a play in which the audience listens to the story through an iPod, and then we just send them out into the world, and they receive instructions as to where to go, and they encounter performers whose stories they hear timed out in their iPod. And yeah, it's interactive, it's roving, it's site-specific, and it's multimedia.
And so do you have people that inspire you to work in that sort of way, or is this something that's quite unique to what you do?
Well, I mean, Over Here, the pod play was inspired directly from my experiences at the Magnetic North Theatre Festival in Whitehorse last year. I got into the Compass Points program with a bunch of other emerging artists, and we got to go to Whitehorse and see a bunch of theatre curated from across the country, and I was introduced to a pod play they had there, and I just fell in love with that model, that form. And so I wanted to bring that to Saskatoon and do it here, because I don't think it's really been done here. And so that was a big inspiration. In school, the work of Grotowski, he's a movement artist from Poland. Something that's he's an artist that's very movement-based and very organic, focusing on devised theater. So not something you sit down and like write for a year beforehand, but something that you create while performers are following their impulses, and directors and producers all collaborating to make a story.
Well, and community is so important.
Absolutely.
The building of community in those collaborative works.
Absolutely.
And tell me a little bit about the community here in Saskatoon. Do you find that you have a supportive and creative group of people to work with here?
Well, there isn't much of an experimental community in Saskatoon yet. I'm hoping that as the work with my company, It's Not a Box Theater, continues, that we will show that, hey, like, you can you can innovate too. You can come out of the box too. Like, they've been doing pod plays in Vancouver and Toronto for well over a decade, and I think that there are a lot of talented people here, and I hate to see them leave so often, because simply because that there's work in other places in innovative fields. But I think that we can totally do it here, and so I'm hoping that there is a community that grows as they see more of our work, that shows that you can do this with like a shoestring budget too. Like the pod play, you don't have to book a venue. You can just go out into the city.
And so what's It's Not a Box working on now?
Right now, we're actually going to work on another production of Over Here. It's had a bit of a journey. We first did it in October, and then we did it in January for Winterruption, and collaborated with local businesses so that the audience would have to go inside local businesses and actually hear stories inside like a bar or a pub or a cafe. And now we want to do it again in the fall, but in Vancouver, Saskatoon, Toronto, and Paris, all at the same time, incorporating mainly immigrant stories and Aboriginal stories with the theme of shared land and stuff that's very politically relevant right now, because I think those are the stories that most need to be told.
And you brought something to read today, so can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, I brought some poetry I know that I'm a playwright, but it's essentially just a taste of the kind of writing that I would incorporate into my theater, right? Like in Over Here, it's the narration can occasionally get poetic. So this is the kind of stuff that you'd hear. But this is a poem that I wrote recently about certain things happening in my life. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'll just read it. Okay. It's called She Lives Alone. Her and I live alone, not together. I left to roam, left her in the home. Not a home, our home, only home we've ever known. Now a pre-retirement home because she's only 55 or 54 or 69 or 30 years younger than the night before, oh, you know, and lives alone. I visit one day because that day is Christmas Day. She decorated her terrarium of memories, the home. Wood of the walls was cold with every winter old like the stem of a carrot overgrown. We took a walk for a walk and left the dog at home to look inside next door windows, wonder what other dogs whine and moan. This house, she said, they can't decide whether to knock her down or to try to remember what she wanted before she died. They can't decide, so it sinks and sighs, alter to a slow matricide. This house, she said, is where there used to be a house, but her son drowned and she drowned too after, but before her man left her, and now there's not a trace, just bushes and yellowing grass left around the place. There was another house with rusted wood crust scales, glass black teddy bear eye windows, icicle fingernail branches, grown from the same bark, stopped cutting its hair, to sit back and dilapidate without a care in the world. And no one lives there. So she lives alone, the only home we've ever known. She lives alone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very vivid images, and like so many people who are creators in this place, in this Saskatchewan, this place that we call home, it's very much influenced by the setting and working with site-specific pieces as well. It has, that must be a big part of your work as well.
Absolutely. Our goal with Over Here is to really to bring in non-actors and non-artists, non-writers to come and share their stories of their home, and to ask questions of what is home, what does that mean, and to share that with each other, because I think it's a time when, especially now, when we need to listen to each other's stories about home.
Well, that's all the time we have, but I think that's a fantastic way to end our interview. Thank you, Torien, so much for being on the show with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'm Danica Lorer, and this has been Lit Happens. You can find past episodes by going to YouTube and searching for Shaw TV Saskatoon. Thanks for watching.